Welcome back in, everybody, to the Boston Celtics Newsfeed, powered by CLNS Media. I'm Mike Walsh, manager of the Celtics Newsfeed, and this is day 14 of our 2017-18 NBA preview. We'll be going day by day, releasing team previews leading up to opening night, October 17th in Cleveland. Before we get started today, I want to mention that the CLNS Media team has been all over training camp, and our YouTube page at youtube.com/CLNS Media is packed with content from Monday's preseason opener. So head over to youtube.com/CLNS Media and subscribe to not miss a thing this preseason. Now, each of these preview podcasts will be accompanied by an outline blog post on our site, CLNSradio.com. Today we're going to be joined by CLNS Celtics Editor at Large Cory Prescott to preview the Milwaukee Bucks, so you can head over to CLNSradio.com, read his at-length, in-depth preview there. Milwaukee had a relatively quiet offseason, but the internal improvements and the internal health of their young budding stars should definitely be cause for concern among the Eastern Conference elite. So without further ado, let's get into day 14 of the Boston Celtics Newsfeed's 2017-18 NBA season preview with Cory Prescott and the Milwaukee Bucks. All right, Cory Prescott on the line with us, CLNS Celtics Editor at Large. We're going to be talking the Milwaukee Bucks. Cory's preview running on CLNSradio.com right now. You can read about it there, but we're going to get into this Giannis Antetokounmpo stuff, Jabari Parker, Greg Monroe. We're going to talk it all. Cory, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great. Get to talk about the Greek Freak. So he's one of my favorite players, favorite non-Celtics players. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, he's definitely blown up over the past couple of years, and I feel like this is going to be a heavy podcast on him. And I feel like also the Bucks season kind of is riding on him. You know, if he takes that next step, they can enter that upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. Otherwise, they're going to be 5 to 8 somewhere around there, and also maybe get a couple wins like they did in this past postseason. They finished 42-40. Get the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs, wind up with a matchup with Toronto, the number 3 seed, and they do climb ahead 2-1. We were talking about this before, but lose 3 straight there. So definitely, I think, learning experience from them. Is that what you gained?
Yeah, they kind of got ahead of themselves, and I think they were pretty evenly matched up with that Toronto team. Even though Dwayne Casey seems to just fall flat in his face every postseason, or he has a tough time adjusting with the X's and O's. So they were pretty even with that Toronto team, but they kind of got ahead of themselves. These playoff series for these young teams are kind of like learning experiences. I know Giannis was a part of that Bucks team about 3 seasons ago where they made the playoffs and they lost in the first round to the Bulls. But this was kind of a coming out party, or just a nice jump in experience for him. And, that really wasn't the full strength Bucks squad, obviously missing Jabari Parker. Chris Middleton came back, but he was still working his way back from a torn hamstring. Mm-hmm. So they were kind of a little bit patchwork team. Malcolm Brogdon was a rookie, so him feeling the limelight a little bit in that playoff series. So they're a little bit ahead of themselves. This is a big year for them, though.
Yeah, you mentioned him there a little bit. Jabari Parker, somewhat of an X factor on this team. People aren't really considering, like I already brought up, I don't think they had much of an offseason. Their offseason is really going to be getting Parker healthy, hopefully. He's played 3 NBA seasons, only played 152 of a possible 246 games, so around 60%. Tell me about his first few years in the NBA and what the problem has been, really.
Unfortunately for basketball fans everywhere, went down with an ACL tear in his left knee. That was last year, but that's also the same injury he suffered in 3 seasons with the Bucks. So every time he suffered that ACL tear, big question mark. Chris Middleton came back last year and he shot the ball well. A nice wing player, nice wing defender, but they need more from Parker and other supporting guys like Greg Monroe and Malcolm Brogdon, who was the surprising rookie of the year last year.
Yeah, he played well again in a couple games against the Celtics, I remember. Hey, you mentioned Parker, some injuries, Middleton, some more injuries. It's a team that everybody, I want them to be good. I think people, are ready for this team to be good. It's just, it hasn't fully emerged yet. And I guess, we can get into the offseason, but my concern is that I don't want to say their window is like open and shut already, but the Eastern Conference underwent so much changeover this season, and you look at what the Celtics did, what Cleveland's done. Toronto and Washington are still above these guys. The Sixers are sort of going to be, I guess, nipping at their heels now. Maybe even you throw Charlotte in there getting Dwight. Could this thing be over before it begins? I don't want to say that, but it just seems Well, I mean, let's get into their offseason.
Yeah.
They didn't do a whole lot.
No, they didn't really do a whole lot. And you kind of look at their salary cap sheet; they're pretty maxed out this season. I've been thinking around $124 million. That's a top 5 payroll in the NBA this season. Next season's a big question mark. Jabari is a free agent, and if you followed any of the Wiggins negotiations or the ongoing negotiations with Wiggins, contract that was floated out to him was around 5 years and $148 million. A nice chunk of change for anyone, but especially for someone with the injury history that Parker has. I wouldn't say their window is closed by any means. Giannis he's 23.
Certainly.
Still has a long way to go as far as developing an outside shot and just kind of mastering the game. And then hopefully they can develop Brogdon into a reliable guard. Middleton's still in his young 20s, and there's still a lot of room to grow for them. And they have the benefit of playing in this putrid Eastern Conference where, I mean, they might end up being the third best team in the conference this year. I wouldn't be surprised considering just kind of how stale the Raptors have become. The Wizards obviously don't have a lot of depth, and they didn't really add any pieces. And then you sounded like you're a little bit high on Dwight after watching that first preseason game and watching him throw absolute bricks at the backboard. I'm not sure I'm high on Milwaukee. The sky is the limit for them, and it comes down to Giannis obviously, and whether Parker can come back and maybe be like 90% of what he was last year.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to. I don't want to say too much that the window is closed. Right? I just in my mind they were going to enter into that top 4. I mean, you think that they can displace either, I guess, Washington or Toronto. I don't know if what I was looking to get out of them. Obviously, they kind of got hamstrung when I think Greg Monroe opted into his contract. That sort of sucked up another, $17 million that they weren't able to use.
Yeah, I mean, $17 million this year. It comes off the books next season, and I imagine he's all but gone, considering he's always in Jason Kidd's doghouse for some reason or the other. And actually, it helps the Celtics because he always kills the Celtics for some reason.
All right, so in terms of hard offseason evidence, Tony Snell gets a sizable contract from them, and but they do lose some guys. Michael Beasley's gone. Yeah, I mean, anything else really change over? Obviously, Gerald Green is now there, so... Yeah,
Gerald Green, the Celtics savior from the Chicago series last season is there, but I don't know. I mean, Beasley is obviously a journeyman, and he's a nutcase, but for 1 year and $2.1 million to go to New York, whereas you pay Tony Snell about $4 and $46, I'm not sure who you'd rather have. I mean, I'm not really a big Tony Snell guy. I guess he's an okay wing defender, but...
Right.
Paying him that much over 4 years seems pretty steep. And one of the things they need to avoid, especially when they want to entice Giannis to stay and to keep the guy happy, is overpaying these role players like Snell and Dellavedova, like Monroe from previous seasons, John Henson as well. So where they kind of max out with these role guys whose ceilings aren't that high, whereas the Celtics obviously did things pretty ingeniously, I guess, by carving out room to fit these max guys in. So they got to be careful with overpaying these kind of overvalued or these dime a dozen type of role players just to go forward with.
Today's episode is sponsored by Greats, makers of the all-time greats, classic, stylish, and comfortable sneakers sold at a great price. Greats is Brooklyn's first sneaker company. They sell all the greats, classic styles, made the best for less. They have a wide selection of both men's and women's shoes, tons of versatile, different styles, tons of different colors, materials to choose from. Head over to Greats.com. You can browse their best sellers. Those include the all-leather Royale lace-ups. Those are the ones I have, and the Worcester slip-ons. My pair of Royales, all white, straight white, so sweet, so fly-looking. They look great with dress pants, jeans. I've been wearing them all week at work. Super comfortable. Not a single problem with them at all. So head over to Greats.com. We've got a special deal for our audience. Save 15% on your first order with our offer code Celtics Roundtable. Go to Greats.com. That's GREATS.com. And be sure to enter Celtics Roundtable to save 15% at checkout. Greats also believes so much in their shoes, they're going to offer you a no-risk return and exchange policy, guaranteeing you that you will get the right fit and style that you're going to love. That's Greats.com. Use our code Celtics Roundtable and save 15% off at checkout. You mentioned in your piece on CLNSradio.com they were sort of late in the game in on Kyrie. I like sniffing around there a little bit. If that's the thing you want to keep open as a possibility, yeah, you can't be, throwing that money at the Tony Snells of the world. That's not what Ainge has done over the last couple of years, and that's sort of how he made sure he always had that space and kept amassing picks and not, long-term contracts.
Yeah, I mean, fault Ainge for whatever you want to fault him with, but he never really hamstrung himself with deals, and he's always said that he wants to pay for performance going forward and not on past performance. So, Tony Snell had a career year last year, but can he kind of replicate that or even improve upon that? And, even another guy we talked about, Thon Maker, I'm not sure if we want to jump into him, but they're going to be relying big on him this season and going forward as a young centerpiece. Who knows how old he really is, but he's definitely young enough to become a part of their future, and he shows some signs. I was pretty impressed with him last year. I thought he was going to be a dud. 7'1" stretch center who can kind of take guys off the dribble, really athletic. Showed he can play, so his progression is key for Milwaukee.
All right, so let's get into, they will play the Celtics 4 times this regular season, and also you have to look at this as a potential playoff matchup. These games, first off, Wednesday, October 18th, the Celtics home opener at TD Garden. So if you're heading to the home opener, you're going to see this team we're discussing right now. You can actually see them twice in October. These two teams will match up. So we're going to get a quick introduction to the Milwaukee Bucks this year and see, have they made that requisite leap to go from 42 wins to the upper 40s, the low 50s, somewhere around there, and be a team that threatens that top 4 seeds in the East, gets home court advantage for a playoff series.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, too, because it seems like the past couple of years, it's always been Milwaukee and Boston matching up maybe like 3 times per year. They've always been like spaced out games. The Celtics always seem to go to Milwaukee on a cold Saturday night, so we'll see how the Celtics fare. It's like a college atmosphere in that arena. I really like it. I like watching games there.
They will play December 4th in Boston, so that's the 3rd game, and then April 3rd they'll travel back up to Milwaukee. For some reason I have that in the wrong order. Anyway, let's get into this. Milwaukee versus the Celtics. What is, obviously the big X factor has to be Antetokounmpo. What can the Celtics, who plays against him?
That's a really good question. They've matched up smart in previous years, but he's too small. This year they have a variety of options, obviously, with the emergence of Jaylen Brown. Marcus Morris, his defensive abilities. We've seen that with him going against LeBron. So if he can match up with LeBron, all right, he can hopefully match up with Giannis. That's really about it. I wouldn't trust Tatum on there. They lost Jay Crowder, obviously, but he didn't really have the quickness. Giannis is just a matchup nightmare for everyone, I think. I mean, you put a small guard on him, and Jason Kidd will just post him up or put him at the elbows. You put a big guy on him, and he'll just run around him and just make him look silly. So Giannis is capable of going off in any series, so he'd be the biggest issue. If these two teams were to match up, I don't think it'd be a first-round matchup, but potentially a second-round matchup between these two teams. Yeah,
and I think that would have to be what would happen, right? Giannis would just have to take another step to definite superstar status, I think, because beyond him, I'm not sure the Bucks would have any sort of favorable matchups against the Celtics.
Yeah. I know Brogdon actually had a great game against them last year.
He had a couple late shots in that game, but
he
again, the Celtics didn't have Kyrie.
Yeah. Kyrie's 6'4". He seemed to take advantage of Isaiah in that matchup and really scored at will towards the end of the game. And Isaiah is a good 5'7", 5'8". Kyrie is not an ace defensive player, not an A+ defensive player, but he definitely gives his effort. He's definitely an average to above average defender. So that matchup wouldn't be advantageous for Milwaukee. Jabari Parker has a nice inside-outside game, so he could be an X factor in that series. And I did touch on Monroe, who always seems to beast against the Celtics because, the Celtics have been kind of undersized these past few seasons. That's a matchup worth watching. If he's out of Jason Kidd's doghouse, that's the big question for him.
All right. Final record standings prediction from Corey for the Milwaukee Bucks. You have them at 48-34. And 5th in the Eastern Conference, so you do have them sort of coming in right behind that sort of main 4 that was there last year as well, right?
Yeah, and I think I changed that up kind of last minute. I'm higher on the Bucks just they'll get a lot of those cheap wins. They'll get a lot of nice wins coming in the Eastern Conference. They should be able to beat up on a lot of those teams. And I have them even with teams like Toronto and Washington. I could see all three of those teams going 48-34, or 49-33, somewhere around that range. They'll be an Eastern Conference playoff contender, and I mean the key for them, just the next step, just get out of that first round. That's always the toughest part. It took the Celtics 2 tough years. There are 3 tough years, I guess. That Cleveland series, and then that doesn't really count. That was kind of a practice run for them. But the Atlanta series where they went 6 games and ultimately lost that one. And last year, I mean, they barely got out of the first round. So get out of the first round, and the Bucks have something to move forward with.
All right, that was Cory Prescott, CLNS Celtics Editor at Large. You can follow him on Twitter at CLNS_Prescott and read all of his stuff over at CLNSradio.com. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Day 14 of the Boston Celtics Newsfeed's 2017-18 NBA Preview. Again, you can get more analysis on the CLNSradio.com site, read Cory's stuff over there, and view any of our previous episodes at youtube.com/CLNSmedia. Follow CLNS on Twitter at CLNS Media and myself at CLNS_Walsh. Be sure to subscribe to the Celtics Newsfeed, rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, and of course, the CLNS Media Network's mobile podcast app. Head over to greats.com, check out their shoe selection, great sneakers over there for a great price. Greats.com, use the promo code Celtics Roundtable for 15% off at checkout. Until next time, this is Newsfeed Manager Mike Walsh signing off.